The film is set in Spain and tells the story of a man named Eduardo. One day he was waiting for his friend Igor in front of the prison. Today is the day Igor is released from prison. When Igor is released from prison, he greets him warmly and introduces him to his girlfriend Vanessa. After they meet, Eduardo takes him to his car, where some girls are waiting to serve Igor. Then they go somewhere in their respective cars. You arrive at a big house owned by a famous gangster in town. It turns out that Igor had previously worked there as a mule. Her arrival was warmly welcomed by her friends, as Igor is a respected figure among the gang. Shortly after, they are greeted by the leader of the drug dealers, Alfonso. He seemed very happy that Igor was here and told him to rest at home as he had a lot of business to do after this. Igor enters the house, where he meets Saeed. Mr. Saeed lives at home with his wife, but her wife is a severe drug addict and she cannot live without drugs. Igor then rests in his room and prepares to start a new day outside the prison. He starts putting bugs under the sink. This is a wonderful revelation. It turns out that since his imprisonment, Igor has become a spy, working with the police to catch the mafia. The film then moves to France. A police commander named Richard is heading to the hospital to review the autopsy report regarding the death of an unidentified man. Hospital staff said the perpetrator was so violent that he inflicted serious injuries to the diver's face, making it very difficult to identify. Richard then tells hospital staff that the case is still under investigation. We are back in Spain. Eduardo's men are on their way to transport a large amount of drugs. A group of thugs transport the drugs by boat to the shore, where they are handed over to Eduardo's men. Interestingly, on a tourist-filled beach, they had a drug delivery deal, but they didn't care at all, and most importantly, successfully completed their mission. They leave the beach as soon as they get all the drugs. Switch to another scene. Here we meet Sarah, a Spanish policewoman. She is investigating a traffic accident that is also suspected of murder. She works with a teammate named Bob. Her boss then tells her that the prime suspect in the case has yet to be found. Later that night, Sarah and Bob talk over drinks. She tells him about a spy named Igor who has just been released from prison. She told him that she had been working with Igor since he was in prison. She hired him as a spy to catch a drug dealer boss and his men. Bob then praises her and says she will fully support him in catching this mafia. The next day, Eduardo and Igor go to the ranch to meet mafia leader Alfonso. Alfonso is not only a mafia boss, but he also works as a cattle herder. Alfonso tells Igor that he has a big job ahead of him. He tells Igor, Eduardo, and the others that he intends to supply the French mafia with a large amount of drugs, and Igor gladly takes the job. They leave the ranch as soon as they discuss their plans. Return to Igor's room. He confirms the bug he planted the other day, takes out the SIM card that was previously hidden there, enters Saeed's room, and secretly uses Saeed's cell phone. He texts Sarah to tell her that he plans to ship the drugs to France tomorrow. After receiving his message, Sarah told her boss about her plans. Her superior then instructed her to warn all her teammates to prepare for her ambush. We are back in France. Richard and his team are still investigating the latest murder of an unknown man. A suspect has not yet been found. Back in Spain late in the evening, Sarah was on her way to another police unit to seek help in an ambush the next day. The head of this department is a man named Maureen. They discuss the plans and their respective missions for this grand heist. I'm back in France to see Bruno. He is the leader of a French gang. Bruno and his friends have dinner together at a restaurant and talk about naughty things. Their conversation makes other guests uncomfortable, so one of them asks him to keep his voice down, but Bruno cannot accept being treated that way. He approaches the man and attacks him. He told the man not to interfere with him. After that, Bruno and the others left the restaurant. The next day, Igor bugs one of the cars that is supposed to participate in the drug delivery. Bugs then sends a signal to Sarah and her team telling them they are on their way to their destination. Before leaving the house, Eduardo asks all his friends to remain vigilant and remain with the group while heading to the designated location, knowing that it is the largest deal, and that no one is allowed without his permission. Warned that he would not be allowed to leave the group. They have shipped narcotics in their business. As they are about to leave, Saeed's wife comes and joins him. In this show, Igor and another member ride bicycles while the other members drive behind them in their cars. We return to France to meet Richard and other police officers investigating the same case. But this time, they go to the apartment complex and try to find further clues from people living near the apartment complex that could lead them to the suspect. They meet an old lady who lives there, who apparently has a hobby of spying on people who live near her house. Later, she showed detailed photos to the police who came to her house, and she also said she used the cameras to monitor people she thought were acting suspiciously. The old lady then told the police that she knew a mafia named Christ who lived in this apartment complex. The scene cuts to Eduardo calling Christ on the way to the drug dealer. He tells him that he and his team will soon be arriving in France to deliver the medicine to Bruno. And Christ said he was always ready to help him complete the task. The scene then cuts to Saeed and his wife in the car. On the way they shipped the medicine, his wife took another medicine. He told her he was sick of his addiction and asked him to stop, but she ignored him. Shortly after, her wife vomited in her car and she lost consciousness. Saeed is furious with her and tries to wake her up, but she doesn't move at all. Then Saeed got worried. At the same time, Eduardo sent a message to the entire team telling them to stay with the group as he was about to cross the border between Spain and France. We got back together with Saeed, who still tries to wake his wife, to no avail. He then decided to leave the group and drove past. He was very worried about her and kept trying to wake her up. As he was trying to wake her up, some Spanish police officers came and asked what was going on. Said nervously answers police questions. The police noticed his suspicious behavior and asked him to raise his hand. He fired instead of following the police. Shortly afterward, Eduardo arrived at the scene and promptly shot the police officer dead. After eliminating all the police, Eduardo said approaches and reprimands them for leaving the group. Saeed then tells him that he must leave the group to help his wife, who has fallen unconscious from an overdose. Unexpectedly, however, his wife was killed by the bullet that was fired first. Afterwards, Eduardo ordered his wife's body to be placed there and told him to leave immediately. He then called his team and told them that it was too late for him to cross the border and he had to take another route. Sarah and the others wait for the mafia group, but they are forced to leave when news of a shooting near the border arrives. They then go to the crime scene with the team to evacuate the victim. When they arrived at the crime scene, they saw how they brutally murdered the police, so they knew that the mafia group they were dealing with was not an ordinary one, but the most cruel one. A mafia group led by Eduardo arrives in France and decides to take a short break in the nearest village. So Eduardo asks an old man he just met to let his men stay at his house. At first the old man was reluctant to let him into the house, but Eduardo forced him. After that, the old man felt that the safety of his family and son was in danger, so he had to let himself and his men stay at the house. He had no choice but to let her stay for the night. In the evening they were invited to dinner as guests by the old man. During dinner, Eduardo tells the old man's son not to scare them and he advises him to be a tough guy when he grows up. The boy just nodded at everything Eduardo told him. Shortly after, an old man is seen going outside to covertly check Eduardo and his men's cars. He had some understanding that they were all criminals as there were many bullet holes in their cars. Suddenly, Eduardo arrives, finds out what the old man has done, and kills him. After killing the old man, he returned home and told Igor to take the old man's wife and son out of the house. He tells Igor to kill her too to eliminate witnesses to her own crimes. Igor took the old man's wife and her son out of the house, while Eduardo and Vanessa went upstairs and spent the night together making love. The love scene is so explicit that it has to be omitted from this video to protect our innocence. Back in France, Richard has just received word from his teammates that he has a new assignment. You have to catch a group of Spanish mafia members who are trying to run drug trafficking in their country. Richard then instructs his team members to work with the Spanish police to ambush the mafia during the deal. Early in the evening they hold a meeting with the Spanish police, led by Sarah. On the way to the police station, Sarah tells Richard all the crimes that the mafia group has committed. French and Spanish police meet to agree on ambush strategy. Each is assigned their own task. After the visit was over, Richard called his only daughter and told her that he loved him very much and would be back soon. Sarah then comes up to him and they talk for a while. The next day, the mafia group continues their journey, and before leaving the village, Saeed says that the old man's car is riddled with bullet holes and Bruno says he will drive because he is going to another place to pick up drugs at the scheduled time. Put him somewhere, so is Christ, who will go anywhere to help Eduardo with his drug dealing. When Christ got into the car, an old lady who lived in the same apartment building saw Christ from the window of her house. Eduardo, Igor, and the rest of the team stop briefly for a break, and Igor takes advantage of the break to call Sarah, telling her that he's near the designated area and will be arriving soon. After getting the location from Igor, Sarah immediately instructed the team to get ready. All police officers are doing their best to make this mission successful and arrest all mafia. In a nutshell, the police have arrived at their destination, France's historic tourist attraction. They have been waiting for the arrival of the mafia for a long time. After a long wait, mafia cars gradually entered the city. The entire mafia will arrive at the designated location and proceed with the drug deal. But before that, a bus with students arrives for a site visit. It turns out that part of their plan was to cover up this drug deal and avoid the police so that it would go smoothly as previously planned. The process of delivering drugs from Eduardo to Bruno was successful and they were ready to leave the scene. All the cops thought it was the perfect time to rob her. Interestingly, when the police raided, none of the mafia put up any resistance and calmly surrendered. However, 2 cars and 2 motorcycles, including Igor, managed to escape the ambush, and police quickly gave chase. It was a very long chase, but the police were finally able to stop the car, and Igor, who was on the motorcycle with the other car that said was driving, managed to escape from the officers. After that, the police took the whole mafia to the police station. The scene then cuts to Igor, Saeed, and other mafia members stopping off after escaping a police chase. They argue and blame each other for the failed mission. Many of their friends have been arrested. Saeed listens to Christ's call, still blaming each other. He tells them there is a spy among them. One of them betrayed her so the police could locate her drug dealing. After hearing Christ's words, Saeed told Igor about the spy and he pointed a gun at him, but when he pulled the trigger, he didn't want to kill Igor, but someone else. Tried to kill Igor seemed relieved that he could still hide his own betrayal. He comes back to Sarah interrogating Eduardo at the police station. Sarah asks who the boss is, but instead of answering her question, he asks Sarah to stay the night. Then Maureen, who was there, punched him for what he said to Sarah. Elsewhere, Vanessa sees Richard walking outside his cell and demands a cigarette. Not only does she demand cigarettes, she offers herself to him and asks him to sleep with her in her cell. But Richard realized she wasn't his type and politely declined her invitation. After interrogating Eduardo, Sarah meets Bruno. Bruno threatened her that she would regret everything he had done to her. But Sarah and the other officers were not afraid of him at all. Bruno called her a slut and said she was unfit to be a police officer. After hearing Bruno's words, Richard became enraged and punched Bruno with his fist. When Bruno insults Sarah, he becomes furious. After an incident with a mafia member, Sarah and Richard went outside to get some rest. Sarah thanked him for what he did for her, after which the two discussed their personal lives. Later, Sarah learns that Richard is a widow with a daughter. Meanwhile, Richard learns that Sarah is busy with her cop job and she remains single. Apparently, the two are attracted to each other. Shortly after, Sarah received a call from her partner saying she had found the address of drug lord Alfonso. Police officers then raid the house and successfully hunt down all of Alfonso's men. Several police officers finally caught Alfonso inside the house. The latter pretended to surrender when two police officers spotted him, but quickly shot him dead. All of Alfonso's men are dead, and the situation has calmed down for a while, but the police are still unable to locate Alfonso. It turns out that Alfonso is posing as a police officer. He puts on his police uniform and leaves the house. However, his cover was exposed and he was arrested by the police. The officers asked him to surrender, but he still tried to resist, so the officers had to shoot him dead. He eventually died. Move on to the next scene. While the joint French-Spanish police are trying to transfer all members of the mafia to high-security prisons, an unexpected accident on the highway causes them to get stuck in traffic. Maureen arrives and tells Sarah that there is no other way to the prison and that she must wait until the evacuation is complete. While waiting in the car, Vanessa asks Bob to let him out for a while to pee, but Bob says no and tells him to be patient. Vanessa then pees in the car. It turns out to be a code for mafia members to launch attacks against the police. Mafia members managed to assault a police officer and shot dead several police officers who were in the vehicle. Eduardo eventually escaped from the police, but Vanessa and several policemen were shot dead. Proceed to the next scene. As the lawyer got out of the car, he met Sarah. He tells her he made a big mistake arresting someone like Bruno, but then she confronts him and tells him she's not afraid of him at all. A key witness to Eduardo and his men's crimes has come to the police station. The main witnesses turn out to be the old man's wife and son whom Eduardo killed in the previous scene. Elsewhere, Eduardo was eating dinner watching the news on TV, and caught a glimpse of the old man's wife and son on the news. Then he realized that Igor had not killed her and that he had betrayed him. Enraged by the truth, Igor became a spy. Soon after, he went elsewhere to meet Christ and enlisted his help in finding a hiding place. He was picked up by Christ's man and immediately went to Christ's house. Having learned that Eduardo is in Christ's house, Sid and Igor meet him and decide to hide in Christ's house as well. When they arrived, Eduardo greeted them with a smile that suddenly turned into anger. He was so angry at Igor's betrayal that he asked several men to capture him and locked him in the back of the house. He also intended to kill Saeed, who had thwarted her plans due to his late wife's actions. Then the scene switches to Richard and Sarah. Richard drives Sarah to her house and the two have a short talk outside her house. Sarah then asks him if he won't come to her house and he kisses her and accepts her invitation. They went to Sarah's house and spent the night together and made love. At another location, several police officers patrol and find bicycles and cars believed to be mafia members. They reported their findings to Richard, who spent the night at Sarah's house. Richard told Sarah he had to go. Back at Christ's house, Eduardo finds Igor tortured for treason. When he asked why he did this, Igor said he was fed up with the bad things he had done all along. And he kills him without saying anything. Not long after, he saw the fully armed police standing in front of his house. The police ambushes him and his men, and another fierce and bloody shootout erupts between the police and the bad guys. The police manage to break into the house, where Sarah finds Igor dead in a cell. She was devastated by Igor's death. The villains were overwhelmed by police attacks. They bombed relentlessly. Eventually they succeeded in capturing Eduardo. However, Eduardo is a real jerk, and even after being handcuffed by the police, he insults Sarah by calling her a stupid cop. Sarah was provoked by his words and turned her gun on him to try and kill him, but one of her teammates tried to stop her and he told her to let him do it for him. Shortly after, police evacuated all of the victims who died in the earlier shooting. A new day has arrived. We see Sarah walking down an alley with a bucket of flowers to meet Richard. But she stopped when she saw him outside with her daughter and his ex-wife. She has a bittersweet feeling in her heart. She is sad that she cannot be with him, but at the same time she is happy that she is reunited with him and his family.